It's time for the third and final race of the weekend in the Ginetta GT Academy here from Donington Park under a slightly overcast sky, it must be said. Temperature noticeably dipping towards the end of the weekend. There's a breeze blowing across the Donington Park venue, but hopefully we will avoid rain because in the dry conditions so far this weekend, it has been a fantastic couple of races already in the Ginetta GT Academy. The track temperature still retaining most of its heat though, about 69% humidity is what perhaps will be causing a little bit of concern. It's been a fascinating weekend of racing. Nick White and Ravi Rami, top two in the championship, sharing the race wins between them so far. It is Ravi who starts from pole position in this race by virtue of leading the second race of the weekend from lights to flag. It was his Century Motorsport teammate Ed Akers there in the orange number 20 car who finished second and will therefore share the front row with him for this one. Andy McEwen and Kai Bachin back with you to talk through all of the action over the next 20 minutes. And what do we reckon? Ravi Ramid's second win of the weekend, Nick White's second win of the weekend, or can Ed Akers finally break through and get that first win of the season?
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to say a name here because I don't want to put commentator's curse on any of them up at the front end, because it really could be any of those three drivers. And even outside those three drivers, we've still had many competing up at the front end and having glimpses at that first position. Obviously, Ravi Ramid, the favourite going into this one, though.
Partly because he starts on pole position with Ed Akers, as I said, alongside him, Nick White third, and then Mackenzie Walker. This is the first time he's actually started at the front of the grid. He had to start from the back in the previous two races after a qualifying penalty. Thomas Shelley and Paul Livesey are together on the third row then, and then it's the first of the Tomlinson brigade. Emma Tomlinson seventh, Charlotte Lowe, another one of her rookie competitors on the fourth row with her, then Phil McGarty and Amy Tomlinson completing the top 10 on the grid. Then Lucy Tomlinson and Matt Shaw, so Matt Shaw a lot further back than he should be really after non-finishing in the earlier race, the runaway rookie championship leader, whilst Mark Ellman completes the 13-car grid. So that win for Ravi Ramid, his fourth of the year, gives him one more win than Nick White, but perhaps more importantly, it gives him 3 more points than his championship rival. So Nick White, starting third on the grid, could do with striking back if he can in this race. In the rookie class as well, that non-finish for Matt Shaw has tightened things up quite nicely. He's only 15 clear now of Amy Tomlinson. Granted, dropped scores are there to help him as the season goes on. So as we get into the second half of the season, we'll start to take those drop scores into account. You can afford, therefore, to have a bad race or two and just essentially forget that they ever happened, but puts the pressure on a driver, doesn't it, Kai? In the early part of the season, you're defending a championship lead. Once you have a bad race, you can't really afford to have another one.
No, not at all. Obviously, with that only being one drop round that drivers can have, you need to focus on every single race as if you already had your drop round, because if you have a higher score, if you score well in every single race, obviously it just goes off the worst weekend that you've had. But if you've already had one bad weekend, let's say you have a non-finish in pretty much every single race, you can't drop those rounds.
Yeah. Exactly, so you've got the pressure's on now for Matt Shaw, and has a bit of work to do on the grid in this one to try and get towards the front of the rookie class, which was won by Emma Tomlinson in the earlier race. Charlotte Lowe second and Amy Tomlinson third after a bit of toing and froing between herself and Lucy Tomlinson in the closing stages, both of them having a couple of off-track moments. So Ravi Ramid then, starting from pole position. That inside line into Redgate has been the place to be at the start of most of our Ginetta races this weekend. It's much easier to defend a lead on that inside line than it is to sweep around the outside. But if anyone's going to try it, you'd put money on Ed Akers giving it a go. The red lights are on. Who's going to get the best start in the final race of the weekend? Well, it's not Ed Akers, is it? He bogs down massively. Mackenzie Walker comes through from the second row of the grid. And could he potentially be a challenger for a win this afternoon as well? He's into third at least. It could become second. Yes, it will become second as he goes around the outside of Nick White. So Ramid leads, Walker second, White third, Shelley fourth, and Ed Akers getting the start all wrong is down to fifth.
Yeah, really bad start there from Ed Akers, but Shelley really taking advantage of that one as he manages to get himself up the field already. Now we go down in towards the old hairpin. Shelley going into the inside line, trying to defend from Akers already as we go up through the infield section. Now Ramid still in the lead, 2 drivers already off, one of them being the number 11. That's one of the Tomlinsons.
It's 2 of them, I'm afraid. It's, I think, Amy and Lucy, who were trying to drive into each other in the previous race, and they finally succeeded, it would seem. team down at the old hairpin. That is a big, big shame. So 2 of the Tomlinsons out. Damaged cars as well, which will need to be repaired before Silverstone at the end of the week. And, well, let's wait and see whether they can be recovered. 19 minutes to go. Ravi Ramyud escaping. And Mackenzie Walker in second. I'm intrigued to see what pace Mackenzie's got here, Kai, in relatively clean air. And a bit more incentive, really, to go for it now, knowing that he's fighting from the front of the field rather than the back with a 10-second delay.
Yeah, Mackenzie Walker, obviously, with that issue in qualifying, means that he did have to start from the back of the grid, down the inside. Ed Akers may not have had the best of starts, but he's looking to already make up for it as he goes down the inside. Watch out on the inside as Shelley tries to get past both of them, and he's managed to do so. So a great switch back there from Shelley means he's able to pick up 2 positions past what looks like down the inside. A very late dive from Nick White. That looked a little bit rash and a little bit harsh of a move there on the inside, especially for such early stages of the race.
One of the things I love about these Academy cars is they're big, heavy, powerful cars, but they run on these road tyres. The braking distances are quite big, and that really offers up plenty of scope for out-braking manoeuvres, as we saw there. That's Amy Tomlinson, by the way, continuing, so I correct myself. It wasn't Lucy Tomlinson in the gravel, it was Amy and Emma Tomlinson. Amy has continued. Whether Emma's car is still in the gravel trap, we may find out now as they drop down through the old hairpin, and we do not see that car. So luckily, the marshals have been able to push them out onto the track, and whilst their races may still be over, everybody else able to continue without the safety car. So Ramyud leads, 1.2 seconds the advantage over Mackenzie Walker second, Nick White third, Thomas Shelley fourth, Ed Akers fifth. That is the battle you're watching now. Third, fourth and fifth absolutely together as they head for Coppice Corner.
Ed Akers, though, really bad start from him. Started obviously on the front row of the grid, now down in 5th position. He's looking to fight his way back through as soon as possible as he kicks up some dust on the exit, pushing as hard as possible to gain milliseconds after time. As any time that he can gain through any corner, he's going to push for it if possible. He first of all needs to make his way past Nick White in front of him, as Nick White has been fighting very hard to stop him from doing so, as the marshals do a good job of clearing up a little bit of debris there that's fallen off one of the cars.
Yeah, I suspect off one of the Tomlinsons. That was out of Starkey's, I think, just after the old hairpin from where they recovered. Nick White then heading up the hill. Lots of debris there on the entrance to Goddard's as well, which Ravi Ramyud does well to avoid. That is the 47 car of Emma Tomlinson limping back to the pit lane, and bits of Ginetta, presumably from Amy Tomlinson's car, lying in the middle of the track as well. So Ramyud leads, sets the fastest lap, 42.4, as Tomlinson dives for the pit lane. Walker 2.3 ahead of Nick White, though. So at the moment, well, actually not a lot to choose in lap times between the top 3. But Nick White, as we've seen a few times this weekend, Kai, just not really able to go with the leaders at the start. His pace, once he settles in, is strong, but he's already lost 2 or 3 seconds by that point.
Yeah, it's really a shame to see, obviously, showing that he has the pace, the overall pace to keep up with the drivers on the circuit. But if you can't initially come hot out the blocks, that's when you lose the most of your time. That's when the gaps start to get established, and that's when drivers start to fall off. No matter what your pace is towards the end of the race, if you're already 2 steps behind, you're not gaining that back.
McLean's, Ed Akers on the attack then, 5th position, not where he hoped to be, having started on the front row of the grid. Seen Ed a few times in the past, not necessarily get the best of starts, but he's a good racer and usually gives it a good go trying to get back through the field, and I'm sure today will be no exception. Down the exhibition straight again they will go. Then it's Livesey in 6th. 7th and on the grass is Matt Shaw. So Matt Shaw, partly because 2 of his rookie competitors were off on lap 1, but partly because he's a good driver, has got himself back into the rookie class lead, and already with a couple of the pro class cars between himself and the rest, clips maybe the tyre bundle there as he turns into the Fogarty S's, but Matt Shaw charging on and will now set off after some of the GTA class drivers ahead of him. Up towards the final turn, though, comes Ravi Ramyud, and what's the gap doing on this lap? It's perhaps going up even further.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds is now the gap that separates the top 2. Ravi Ramyud doing a good job to pull an early gap and getting himself away from the rest of the field and away from the carnage. 1.7 as he crossed the line, so 2 temps, another 2 temps has been pulled on that previous lap. Sorry, it looks like 4 temps on that previous lap. But coming back out of the pit lane there is the number 47. That's Emma Tomlinson making her way back onto the field and actually coming back into a battle of drivers, separating them a little bit there as she gets in between Shelley and Akers as they're coming around the top end of the corner. We come down through what is the old hairpin right now. Having a look at the 57, that's Nick White. Through all this, has been able to pull a little bit of a gap over the drivers in behind. Nick White was under a lot of pressure from Shelley before, but not so much now.
Well, partly because he's just set the fastest lap, a 1:41.807, not quite a new lap record. Ravi Rami did 41.7 in the earlier race, but that is an impressive pace from Nick White. Again, sort of backing up that theory that he's very good on the long run, but perhaps not quite so good on short run pace. Not necessarily a bad thing, though. This is a sort of GT racing feeder series, and when you want to be a GT racer, it is your long run pace that really is the more important. Qualifying on pole is great, but it's about being good over a long distance, and Nick White, even in this 20-minute race, demonstrating that ability nicely. Amy Tomlinson's team looking at the car, but not doing a lot of work, which rather suggests it's not going to be back out on track. Ed Akers up the inside of Thomas Shelley. He is back into 4th place.
Good move there from Akers. Shelley tries to get on the gas a little bit too early and kicks up some dust in doing so. Actually gets a great exit out of the corner, though, out of the Melbourne hairpin, going down towards Goddard's now. He's on the inside, late on the brakes, tries to get it parked on the apex, but all the way around the outside. Ed Akers, hats off to you. Manages to carry the momentum and keep the speed up, and manages to keep himself in front.
Really impressive, that from Ed Akers. Now Shelley going to have a dive up the inside into Redgate. Thinks about it. Oh, going almost into the back of Ed Akers' car. There might have been a touch there. Shelley was late on the brakes, but didn't do the dive to the inside bit and just sort of clouted the back of the Century Motorsport machine. No major damage done, but that was a disaster very narrowly averted there. And Thomas Shelley drops back a little further. Meanwhile, Charlotte Lowe and Lucy Tomlinson here, battling for 10th overall, but this is 2nd in the rookie class, as Matt Shaw is putting a lap there on the number 47 machine of Emma Tomlinson. So Emma a lap down. Matt Shaw has got ahead of Felix Livesey on Paul Livesey, excuse me, on that lap. Felix we've seen out racing one of the other Ginetta categories this weekend, and Paul Livesey not being allowed through quite as easily by Emma Tomlinson as Matt Shaw appeared to be, so the distance increasing between the two cars in that group who are fighting for positions. Out onto the exhibition straight they go. Still Livesey can't find a way through. Emma Tomlinson must know that she is a lap down, but then doesn't really want to jump off the racing line in order to let him through. Now she pulls to the inside down the exhibition straight. Is she going to let him go? Yes, eventually she does, but she just made Paul Livesey sweat a little bit there and did not make it super easy for him to come through.
No, just made him work for it a little bit there, and oh, very deep there through the S's. Mark Ellman just about keeps it under control, though, avoids going off the track limits and into the gravel trap and keeps it on the circuit right now. Will lose out on a lot of time, though, unfortunately, will the number 88. As he's making his tour around the circuit right now. He'll lose a lot of time there to McGarty in front of him. We go down towards what is the final corner, going down towards Goddard's here. A great view that we have here on board with Ellman, obviously a bit more central to where the driver will be sitting. Oh, and that's one driver spun around. That's the number 13, that's Lucy Tomlinson. So the Tomlinsons this weekend really have been through the wars.
It's been up and down, hasn't it, really, with Emma getting the class win earlier on, but now Lucy Tomlinson having had the spin at Melbourne. I'm sure she had a spin there in the earlier race. Either way, Charlotte Lowe will definitely come through. Yeah, she does definitely come through in 2nd, but they both had a slow lap. So I wonder whether perhaps the two having slow laps were linked. This was Mark Ellman. You can see the problem. He got wide onto the dirty side of the road. Look at the amount of gravel that's strewn across the outside line there. Just couldn't get the car turned in. But, as Kai said, did really well to keep it off those blue curbs, because those are the ones that you're really not supposed to be running over. A, because it means you're exceeding track limits, and B, because, as we've seen, it can do real damage to the cars. Ravi Rami down to that very same part of the circuit. Does he stay off the blue curbs? Yes, look at that. Gives them a really wide berth. And that's a sign, Kai, that he is driving well within himself, as well he might, really, with a 2.6 second lead.
Yeah, there's absolutely no need for Ravi Rami to be pushing the limits right now with his car. He just needs to keep it on the circuit, under control and within his reach. As obviously 2.6 seconds, he's not within the reach of anyone else, so he doesn't need to worry about that. If he sees the gap start to close a little bit, if those drivers get within 1 second, that's when Rami can really think, right, okay, now I need to start pushing. Now I'm getting a little bit too comfortable with the car, and that's when he needs to start going for it. Matt
Shaw heads up the hill towards Goddard, still the rookie class leader by a comfortable margin. In fact, he's got 3 of the GTA drivers between himself and Charlotte Lowe, and something like a 20-second gap back to Charlotte in 2nd place. There went Nick White, closing in noticeably there on Mackenzie Walker on that lap. He was 4/10 quicker, and there you can see the gap that was getting on for a second and a half a lap ago, down now to just a shade over 0.8 of a second. Nick White homing in here on Mackenzie Walker, with whom he hasn't really been wheel to wheel this weekend. The two will have raced against each other earlier in the season, of course, but here at Donington Park, Nick White won't necessarily know where his strengths lie in comparison to maybe Mackenzie Walker's weakness. So if he can catch Mackenzie, it won't be an easy thing to do to find a way past him.
No, and it's been a good race so far from Mackenzie Walker, as it looks like Elman, you can see, manages to regain a little bit of the time to the back of McGarty as we're going through what was the old hairpin now. We head up the hill on board with Elman. Is he going to go the long way round? Is he going to go to the inside? He's thinking about either or. And with that debating, a little bit too much contemplation there from Elman, actually loses out on some time due to taking a bit too long to decide what he wanted to do.
Done well, though, to catch back up to Phil McGarty. Remember, he saw him have that moment a couple of laps ago at the chicane. He was a full second quicker than Phil on the previous lap, and he's a lot faster out of Coppice Corner. He's got the run, but look, he's going to have to go to the outside again into the chicane. No, ducks back to the left-hand side. That is the inside line, but he's not quite close enough to outbrake the number 81 car ahead. And as they turn through the chicane, it's again a slightly scruffy line there from Elman, unsighted slightly behind the other car, and that's always a real challenge in anything, be it GT cars, single-seaters, or even in karting. If you're that close behind somebody into a part of the circuit like the chicane, very, very difficult to spot the apex, something that McGarty struggled with there at the hairpin as well, and this might now be Elman's opportunity.
Well, Elman's now going to be on the outside for Goddard's. We've seen in the likes of Akers going all the way around the outside, but it looks like that's not going to be the preferred line there for Elman as we go through Goddard's and back onto the home straight. You'll still have a chance if he gets a good run down the straight into Redgate, and it looks like he's feeling the same opportunity as well. Will he be late enough on the brakes? No, he won't. Staying cautious right now is Elman, not trying to force an overtake on McGarty in front of him, just keeping it within his limits as well.
Yeah, really good racing this between the two of them, though. Elman not wanting to commit fully to a move unless he's absolutely certain it's going to pay off, and Phil McGarty, I'm sure, is appreciating that, but Phil is going to have to make that a very, very wide Ginetta G56, because Elman has proven that on one lap he is faster than McGarty ahead of him. Out of the old hairpin, plenty of curb taken through the left-hand kink at Stark. He's climbing steeply uphill. The onboard camera sort of shows us how steep that climb is towards the highest part of the circuit now, up at Coppice Corner. That's McLean's. We climb ever further now towards Coppice, and then that blind crest through the right-hander can catch out even the most experienced of drivers. Nice and neat and tidy from both of them for the time being. And Elman, again, at this part of the circuit, looks good. Gets a good exit, peaks to the right-hand side. Is he going to commit to the outside, though? This is where it nearly went wrong for him a couple of laps ago. Onto the brakes, they're about to head. A nose in front still for the 81 car, though. McGarty stays in front for now.
Yeah, Elman just trying to find out where it works. It looks like some great defensive driving here from McGarty, just putting his car in the exact position where it needs to be to stop Elman from going for the overtake and thinking about it. Once again, middle of the track there from McGarty. He doesn't want to overcommit to the inside line. He doesn't want to over-defend on Elman, but he also doesn't want to leave that inside line vulnerable for Elman to go for a dive down the inside if he feels like it.
Yeah, you sense that this is going to come down to a mistake from McGarty more than a real lunge from Elman, although he's close again coming out of Goddard's now. Just under 6 minutes to go, so he's got a few more laps to figure this out, but the sooner he gets through, the more chance he might have of chasing on after the car ahead, which is Matt Shaw, I believe. Through Redgate Corner they go again, neat and tidy there from Elman, clips the apex curve nicely, but a slightly better exit nonetheless for Phil McGarty ahead, and he stays in 7th place, 6th within the GTA class. Lunged out through the crane of curves, fantastic sequence of corners, just about flat out in these Ginetta GT Academy cars, then down a gear or two for the old hairpin. Plenty of space left to the left-hand side of the road there for Mark Elman, not necessarily pushing the absolute limits here, but if there's half a chance to get through, he's going to have to try and commit to the move properly. McLean's is not going to yield an overtaking chance, and so still McGarty it is who stays out in front. I was about to say, you're not missing anything out in front. That is a lie, because Nick White here is up the inside of Mackenzie Walker for second, and in the background, Ed Akers up the inside of Thomas Shelley defending 4th position. So change for second, and nearly there, Kaya, change for 4th.
Yeah, Shelley starting to get a little bit more aggressive there on Akers, as Akers seems to be going to have to park in it on the inside line. going very defensive here on these last couple of laps. Shelley taking a very wide, trying to get a very wide line, trying to get a slingshot down the straight here, and it looks like he's managed to do so, but will he be able to get the inside line going down towards Redgate? It's covered off there by Akers. Very good racing between these two. Akers with a defensive masterclass so far, with Shelley having no looks to the inside line and no luck at getting that overtake done though. Nick White and Walker seems to be switching things around.
Yeah, White then into second place, 4.1 seconds off the lead, was 2/10 quicker that lap even with an overtake as Shelley peeks to the inside at the old hairpin. That move from Ed Akers was just about okay into Redgate. I think it was quite a late, almost reactionary defensive move, but ultimately Shelley didn't have an overlap, so I suspect he'll get away with that one. But he needs to be careful with that. If Shelley does poke the nose to the inside, Akers needs to be aware of where the bright green 76 car is. You can't really use the excuse, I didn't see them, can you, when it's Thomas Shelley you're racing with, because Shelley's car by far the brightest on the grid. Right, typically, whilst we took our eyes off this battle, I think we've had a change between Mark Ellman and Phil McGarty, right round the outside of the Melbourne hairpin there for Mark Ellman, which would have given him the inside for Goddard's. Didn't make that work, though. Got the switch back and did eventually find a way through. So Ellman has gone up one place. He's into 7th position now, but this battle, Kai, well, these battles at the front continuing to rage on.
Yeah, some great battles going on. You can see Ellman with brilliant racecraft just looking to the inside. Shelley tries it again, but Akers once again shuts the door straight in his face. He's not going to get Shelley get to the inside if he's going to have anything to say about it. Shelley looks, but he's going to have to dive. You can see ducking and diving on the circuit here. Shelley looking left and right in every single corner. Desperate to get himself this move done. Desperate to get himself in a 4th position right now as, oh, that's one driver off. That's McGarty. The 81, yeah, Phil McGarty, after having a great battle with what was Ellman a couple of laps ago, finds himself in the gravel trap in the S's. I wonder what happened there. He manages to get going again. Nope. We're going to have a little bit of a replay and a great slow-mo here. Is there contact? No, just a lock-up there, and what was very close to contact, but lock-up, and Phil McGarty just goes straight on into the second part of the S's, and we'll have to take the gravel trap.
I don't think even our camera operator was expecting that car to go straight on them, but great work by all of our camera crews to bring us what has been a lot of action in the not only Ginetta races, but all of our races here today at Donington Park. So Paul Livesey was the beneficiary of that. He moves up a position. He was the car right behind Phil McGarty, but as Kai said, no contact evident between the two of them. As the race leaders in the same shot briefly there head down the exhibition straight. Ramid leading, 4 seconds back to White second, 8/10 back to Walker in third, then a further 5 and a bit back to Ed Akers here, the orange car running in 5th. Charlotte Lowe, meanwhile, number 7, trying now to defend 2nd place within the rookie class from the number 13 of Lucy Tomlinson. So Lucy, after a moment earlier on, has closed back in on Charlotte Lowe. An all-female battle here then for the lower podium positions within the rookie category. Lots of female racers actually joining in the Ginetta Championships this season, which is fantastic to see. We've seen Ellen Lloyd showing front-running pace in the GT5s, amongst others, and a pair of them there doing battle, heading through the old hairpin. Akers and Shelley, though, coming through to start what should be their final lap. Kai, what do we think? Has Shelley got an answer for Akers before the flag here?
I don't know. We've seen these drivers going at it for what is probably around the last 5 minutes, and around again as, no, sorry, that's Livesey going round. So the driver which just benefited from McGarty going round goes round in the same position himself. So spins it around in the S's, but answer to your question there, we see Shelley looking a little bit too far back off the back of Akers to get anything done on this lap.
Yeah, it would need a mistake, I think, from Ed, wouldn't it, for that to happen. But we've seen drivers really struggling to keep these cars on the island today. And you never know, a mistake could come. Got to keep the pressure on for as long as you can. Ravi Ramid, though, in the 2 races today, has withstood the pressure beautifully. This has been one of his most dominant performances of the season so far. Leading lights to flag and never really looking like being challenged beyond the first corner, where Mackenzie Walker did make a good start, but wasn't ultimately able to pull fully alongside. And so Ramid now turning into the Fogarty S's for the last time. Just needs to bring this home in one piece now. Nick White second, Mackenzie Walker, well, at least he's going to get a podium, I suppose. He's had a 4th in race 2 of the weekend. In fact, 2 4th places so far. Mackenzie Walker from the back of the grid. Maybe would have hoped for more, having started towards the sharp end this time around. Ravi Ramid then through the Melbourne hairpin. 1 more corner to go before Ravi claims his 5th victory of the season. he will turn a 3-point championship advantage over Nick White into something like a 7 or 8 point advantage, because he's going to claim, well, in fact, White has the fastest lap, doesn't he? It's not quite a maximum score this time for Ramyid, but he does claim the 35 points for winning the race, and that will do nicely. Nick White second does get the fastest lap in the end, and it's third position for Mackenzie Walker, fourth Ed Akers, fifth Thomas Shelley, and then sixth for Matt Shaw, who claims another rookie class victory. Matt Shaw, that's his 6th victory in the class from 8 races completed so far this season. And again, points-wise, looking good for him. And, well, there was time for one more spin for Lucy Tomlinson. She's gone around at McLean's corner this time, and Charlotte Lowe will breathe a sigh of relief, because second place in the rookie class should now go her way. That's Emma Tomlinson making friends now with Mark Elman. Remember, there is we've had a couple of laps between these two cars, but Emma Tomlinson getting stuck in, and Mark Elman not quite able to find a way past at the final turn. But it was all action towards the end of that race. A few drivers further down the order, unfortunately, slipping up towards the end. But Matt Shaw and Ravi Ramyid can once again celebrate another class victory. And on that form, Kai, Ravi Ramyid, it's hard to bet against him for the title. He didn't make any mistakes today in either of the races, and proved that when that happens, he can run away out in front and win the race pretty comfortably.
Well, yeah, and it looks like he's going to run away with a little bit of a gap in the championship bid as well right now, as he will take the lead of the championship as he did in race 2. So now he'll walk away with a little bit of a gap over the rest of the drivers, and it was a very dominant race in this one indeed. 4.375 seconds is the gap that Ramyid had back to Nick White in second position. So Nick White heading into Silverstone, surely he's got to be a little bit nervous. Yeah, and he's to try and unlock some of the form that led to those 2 wins early on in the season. He has claimed a win at each of the events so far this year, Nick White, but yeah, hasn't been able to win on the sort of consistent basis that we've seen from Ravi Ramyid. So, race result then, our third and final Ginetta GT Academy race of the weekend. Ravi Ramyid, the winner for Century Motorsport. Not quite a 1-2 for the team this time, although they do have 3 cars in the top 5. Nick White for Raceway Motorsport was second. Assetto Racing's Mackenzie Walker third, with Ed Akers in fourth. Thomas Shelley fifth. Matt Shaw sixth, won the rookie class, whilst Mark Elman was seventh. There was a 5-second penalty for Paul Livesey, which was confirmed towards the end of the race there for, we guess, track limits. Then it was Phil McGarty ninth. Charlotte Lowe in 10th was second within the class, ahead of Lucy Tomlinson after that last lap spin. Emma Tomlinson finishing 2 laps down, but at least gets to the flag, which after that off at the old hairpin was a bit of an achievement. So, good stuff from the Ginetta GT Academy. They'll head to Silverstone at the end of the week for the Ginetta Festival. Before that, though, let's remind ourselves of some of the things that happened over the last 20 minutes. It was a poor start from Ed Akers from the front row. Ravi Ramyid led them into Redgate Corner pretty much uncontested this time, whilst Mackenzie Walker showed real bravery on cold tyres to go around the outside of championship contender Nick White and up into second place, exiting the first turn. The old hairpin, Akers was already trying to bounce back from that slow start, pulling up alongside Thomas Shelley, whilst there was trouble in Tomlinson land further back as Emma and Lucy Tomlinson tangled, with Lucy ending up managing to continue in the race. Ed Akers up the inside of Nick White down at the Melbourne hairpin. That ushered them both wide and allowed the opportunistic Thomas Shelley to briefly move into a podium place. He didn't stay there to the flag, but that was an impressive bit of driving. Nick White first got back ahead of him, and then with a brilliant move around the outside at Goddard's, it was Ed Akers back ahead as well. Fantastic driving from the two of them. They almost tangled down at Redgate Corner as Shelley tried to come back at Akers, but the Century Motorsport driver lived to fight another day. Into the closing stages, Nick White managed to prise the door open against Mackenzie Walker. He'd been closing in slowly over the previous few laps, got to the inside at the Melbourne hairpin, but never really was able to fully pull away, whilst Akers was still busy defending from the always entertaining Thomas Shelley. Those two were nose to tail until the very end. Ravi Ramyid, though, was able to claim his 5th victory of the season, extends his points lead as the Ginetta family of racing heads to Silverstone at the end of the week for the first ever Ginetta Festival. Matt Shaw will go there with another rookie class win in his back pocket. A very, very successful day at Donington for Ravi Ramyid and Matt Shaw, who will be looking over the middle part of the season to further extend their advantages in the championship in 2023.